So I'll introduce myself. I'm Daniel Degree. My business is MadPipe, and I'm here to give you a education on how to use Twitter more comprehensively for sales and marketing, for entrepreneurship, for thought leadership, and to advocate for your brand if you're an organization, a business, or a company. This webinar is not going to be a formal, polished webinar. You can probably tell from the technical difficulty at the beginning, nor is it going to be comprehensive. The goal is not to be polished, but I want to give you some actionable things you can actually do in the real world. Before we do that, I want to give 3 shout outs to some of the teams that are here viewing the webinar today. So the first one is the Clark Hewlings Fund. Now, the Clark Hewlings Fund champions working visual artists in growing their professional careers by delivering business and entrepreneurial education. This is a component of that. And if you know a working visual artist who isn't aware of the Clark Hewlings Fund, tell them to Google the Clark Hewlings Fund. Another team that's with us today is the team from MarketSmiths. Now, MarketSmiths is the premier copywriting and content writing company that helps mid-size and enterprise companies get ROI, or return on investment, from powerful content. So if you need content for your website, your blog, or your other marketing, white papers, case studies, etc., you need to reach out to MarketSmiths. That's Smiths with an S on the end. And finally, I want to give an acknowledgement to Free Agent Source. Free Agent Source is a management consulting company that delivers corporate projects the way Airbnb delivers hospitality, with each consultant operating their own practice area. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get my ugly picture out of the way. And I want to talk to you about Twitter. Now, we're not going to take very long looking at Twitter because, frankly, to look at the Twitter screen, it's kind of boring, right? You can see how many followers you have. You can see how many tweets you've posted. But after that, it's kind of daunting because it's just a running stream of other people's posts or your posts, depending on what you're looking at. And the first question that people have when they come to Twitter is, well, what do I do? I don't know how to manage this. Salespeople turn away right away because this does not look like a CRM. It does not look like a sales engine. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. The problem here is that we're looking at the wrong screen. So before I take you to the right screen and we just close Twitter down for good and focus on how to make Twitter great with Twitter, I want to say that I have the filters on. That means that we should be filtering out any offensive content. It's possible that somebody posts something to Twitter in the middle of the webinar and we don't like what we see. But we're using Twitter's own filters to filter out offensive content. So I can't control it all, but to let you know, most of the sensitive stuff is filtered out by Twitter. And so if you see something you don't like, shout at Twitter. All right, so moving on. We're going to close Twitter because the thing I really want to introduce you to is a better Twitter. It's Twitter using TWEETDECK. Now, Twitter thought so highly of this product that they bought it. I was an early TWEETDECK adopter back in the old days when it was just an app, and then finally they had a cloud version, and the two didn't connect, and then Twitter bought it, and it became a much more useful device. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how to use this. So I'm going to give you a quick table of contents, a tour of what we're going to cover today, and the format of the webinar. So first, we're going to do a tour of a real live working TWEETDECK. I'm not going to hold anything back. There's no mock content in here. I'm going to show you my actual TWEETDECK and how I use it, because I think it's better to get down and dirty with it. And then secondly, we're going to move on to showing you how to set up a TWEETDECK from scratch, because when you first log into TWEETDECK, which you can do very easily, it's free. It takes about 2 seconds if you have a Twitter account. You're going to find that it's not set up in any way like this one, and you're going to need to know how to do that. And the final thing we'll do is I'll show you some tools and resources that aren't part of Twitter but can make you better in Twitter and basically save the number one thing we want to save, which is effort and time. And finally, I'll take Q&A through the chat window, which I can now see everyone saying, yes, good, we have audio. So fantastic. Without further ado, let's move on. So this is how I have my TWEETDECK set up. And the first thing I want you to see is I can collapse this sort of column and move it out of the way. The main area of Twitter looks like a series of columns, and I can scroll through it, and I have quite a few columns here. But believe it or not, there's a method to this madness. You don't have to learn how to do 25 columns. You probably won't have as many columns as me for a reason I'm about to show you. But you do need to know some of the basics. So I'm going to expand this window again because this is where my controls are on the left side. And the first thing I'm going to show you is that I manage actually quite a number of Twitter accounts, and that's why I have so many columns. The more accounts you manage, the more columns you're going to have. But most of us are going to have, say, a personal account and then a business or organizational account. And TWEETDECK is wonderful because you no longer have to log in and out of those. You can just put them all in one interface like this. I also want to mention that the app that I'm demonstrating is the actual app that you can download and install on your computer. It's identical, however, to the website app, to something you would launch in your browser. Now, I'm still hearing somebody in the chat say that they can't see or hear anything. Can I get a shout out to find out if other people are having the problem, it's a general problem, or it's just one person? So can anyone hear and see? Question. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way first. Someone could chat in the chat window and let me know that we're in good shape. I'll move on. And if an individual is having some video buffering, that just means that there's an issue with your connection to your browser, and my advice would be to try a different browser. Okay, so I do see people saying, yes, we're good to go. So this is a matter of bandwidth, and this happens in any kind of a live broadcast. It is just one of the risks we run, that your browser might be buffering or hanging up, etc. The best thing you can do is, if you have Firefox, Chrome, Safari, that you pop open a different browser. Probably Chrome is going to be the strongest one. Okay, so I've got to move on. All right, so we talked about that we manage different accounts, and you have a place here that you can actually add accounts called accounts. So we won't spend a lot of time on that because it's going to be very straightforward. You click it once, you plug in your 1 or 2 Twitter accounts, your personal and your business, and you move on. Now I have a column here that's set up called mentions, and we're going to solve one of the most basic problems with Twitter using this column. So this column I have first because I really want to see anytime somebody mentions one of my brands or me, okay? And so that's going to be this stream. However, it happens a lot more often than you see here. And so I want to show you the first thing, which is I can expand and I can change the settings here to exclude certain mentions I don't want to see. Because one thing that's a big problem with Twitter is spam and clutter. If you spent all the time looking at all the messages and 99% of them were spam and clutter, no wonder you would get discouraged. So I drop in a couple of filters. I put quotes around this phrase for the retweet, and I put quotes around this phrase, appreciate you following. And the reason why is Twitter is rife with people who do robo replies. You follow them, they send you a message appreciating you following. They mention you every time you retweet them, and pretty soon that's all you're seeing. I don't want to see any of that. I appreciate the thanks, but ultimately I'd like to move on. So I want only high quality mentions. So the first thing this allows me to do is determine what I don't want to see. And anything you find in here that looks like robo language, such as, thanks for being a good follower, I don't need that. That's not a human. I don't feel obligated to read something that wasn't written by a human. So I just put quotes around the key phrase and drop it right into my filter, and that's it. I never see those robo messages again. And there's lots of tools people are using to do that. I even use some of those tools. We'll talk about that later. So the next thing is notifications. So notifications only work on a given Twitter account. So if you have 2, you're probably going to have 2 notifications columns. Here I have 2 notifications columns, both for MadPipe, my core brand. Now, the first thing I've done is exclude certain things. What notifications are is every single thing Twitter thinks you ought to know about. And who of us has time to look at all of that? So I have a column here where I really want to exclude things like likes, which are just pats on the back. New followers, I expect new followers every day. I expect lots of likes every day, but I can't afford to just look at those and feel good about it. I need to move those out. And I don't want mentions because I have the mentions column for all my accounts to the left of it. So I don't need any of that either. What I want to see is anytime I get a notification that I really care about, especially somebody retweeting my stuff. That is the highest value interaction that I can have. When somebody retweets my stuff, it makes me very happy. And I want to either thank them or I want to click the heart and let them know I've seen it and it's appreciated and so on. And I also want to know how good my articles are doing because frankly, not all of my content is stellar. And when I post good content, I want to know which content is working. This column tells me what works and what doesn't. Those retweets are high value. But then I have another column next to it, and it's the exact same thing, but I've included everything, or I've excluded everything except the likes. Now, why do I care about the likes? I don't need to feel good with the pats on the back. What the likes do is the likes tell me the content that is getting pretty positive response, but not necessarily the retweets. So if I see a correlation between, hey, it's getting a lot of retweets and it's getting a lot of likes, I think I have winning content. And if I only see likes but not retweets, then I have good content, not excellent content. And I need to figure out how to beef that up a little bit. Maybe I left out a compelling point, or maybe I just didn't make my case. I was too theoretical. So that's what this is for. All right, and then I have the messages box. And the first thing you'll note, this is a messages box for my business account, that there's hardly any messages in it. That's by design, and this should be something you learn how to do. When I expand this, notice I have an enormous set of filters in here. I have phrases and quotes. I have little individual words. I have a giant "don't show me this" list. The reason why is I don't want all of those robo messages. I don't want to be thanked for finding your network, or I don't want to get a private message that says, would you like to know the secret of being rich? Any of that stuff, when I see that stuff come in, I drop it into my filter until my box stops moving. I don't like to log in and my box is full of junk every day. So I only now get high quality messages from real people about real things I care about, okay? All right, the next thing is my network. So my network, this is actually part of giving you a strategy for social media, not just configuring a tool. All right, so a network, as I see it, is a group of people. I call this, this is also called a gaggle, G-A-G-G-L-E. A network, or a gaggle, is a group of people with whom you've agreed to exchange content and sort of championing each other. So let's say the Clark Healings Fund is with us today, and we, in our Clark Healings Fund network, we have, say, 8 or 10 people who have said, look, I'll do anything for you. I'll trumpet your message. I'll champion your mission. Great. So how do I get them in my network and get a column like this? Well, Twitter has a feature called lists, and you can create as many lists as you want, and you can give them different names. I have a list called My Network, and the list is private, so that because I don't want somebody going to my account and just seeing everybody that's in my network. I want to keep that private. But the people in my network, I can then create a column called a list column, and I would do that just by clicking Add Column over here and deciding that I want one of my lists to be a column, and it'll create that column for me and says which one of your lists. And lo and behold, all the content coming through from people that are in my network, including mine, shows up here. And what that allows me to do is like their stuff, share their stuff to my audience when I feel that it's valuable, and then I'm reciprocating with this group of people. They're championing my message, I'm championing their message. And so that's what the network column is. So as you expand this, I've excluded certain things, like I don't want to see retweets. So in here, there's a what kind of content do you want? Retweets are excluded, but over here, I do want the retweets. And the reason why is because this is a quick look. I just want the stuff that is coming directly from the people that I want to share from. Over here, if someone else is also sharing their material that's not in our network, I want to know that too. And what I look for, I want it separately because this is my quick hit in the day. Oh, there's something really great here. Yeah, I'm going to push that out to my audience. But then when I have a little more time and I'm logged into my system, I want to look at who is saying what about the stuff that they're sharing. And that's sort of our extended unofficial network that's not on a list. So right away we have people retweeting something that I may want to like that or reshare it or do something else with it. All right. So the first thing is build a gaggle. Now I'm going to give you a URL. So if you have a pencil and paper, you might want to write this down. You probably want to know a little bit more about how to get a gaggle together, a network of your own, of friendly people that can champion your brand. What you want to do is go to madpipe.com. Madpipe is my brand. You can see it spelled up here, MADPIPE/gaggle. Don't do it now. Wait till after the webinar. But when you go to madpipe.gaggle, there's a whole write-up on how to build a gaggle or a network. Okay, this next column is ABM. Now, ABM is just shorthand for the phrase account-based marketing. It's very similar to the phrase ABS or account-based selling. They're more or less the same thing. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So what is account-based marketing and how do we use this? Well, this is really applicable to salespeople or nonprofit people that do development, which is just another word for sales in the nonprofit space, where you want to target a small group of people. That's why it's called account-based, not the endless slog of targeting everyone in the market, but you want to handpick, say, 10 or 15 companies that you want to monitor and go after and really work. You want to talk to them about what they're putting out. You want to send them very targeted, personal, handwritten emails. You want to focus on that group. So this is another list. I have a private list called ABM in my Twitter. And again, we'll show you how to create those. But I have a private list called ABM. And who I add to that are my current targets. And after I've worked my current targets for a while, one of two things happens. They either become clients or I've realized that they're never going to become a client, at least not anytime soon. And I retire them off my list and I add 10 different people to my list. So that's what ABM does. Now, my ABM list is going to post things that I don't care about. And they're going to post things that might distract me, such as, notice my exclusion list here. I've excluded Russia, politics, discrimination, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, the White House, immigration. I don't want to see their posts on immigration issues, etc. I only want to see the stuff they're saying that they really care about the economy or business or their industry, etc. So use your exclusion filters to exclude that stuff. Well, how do you get a list like this? Well, it's very simple. I look down through my list and I see things I don't want. And while I'm in there, I type in that particular phrase. And now I don't have to look at that anymore. Okay. So then moving on, notifications. And I'm going to put all the notifications up at once. You might wonder why I have so many notifications columns. I have a different notification column for every Twitter account. So if you only have 1 or 2 Twitter accounts, you're only going to need 1 or 2 of these. Now, I don't have them all in the same place. Why do I have notifications over here with MadPipe? Because these are the main things I want to look. This is my brand. I want to see what's happening. But I also manage some other brands. I don't mean I manage their social media per se, but I have a role of responsibility there where, like many modern social media teams, we haven't merely relegated it to a social media specialist to solely and single-handedly manage our social media. Instead, we have multiple stakeholders in the organization that can be trusted to say things that aren't offensive and trusted to contribute thoughtful posts, etc. And I'm one of those people for a number of different companies and organizations. So I have notifications here to let me know what happens with those posts. And they're again set to show me mainly the retweets. That's what I care about. I'm not really interested in all of the different likes and did we get a new follower. I don't have time to manage that. I want to, and it's not my responsibility. I just want to see how are the posts that we're posting doing, especially the posts that I'm posting. And if somebody else on the team in one of these organizations, let's say I have Jim, Jill, and Susan, and they're posting, I might want to see if Susan is really blowing it up. She's doing a great job and her stuff is getting retweeted. And I can take my cues from that and go, okay, so when she posts these kinds of stories, they work. So you'll probably have 1, maybe 2 notification columns unless you have responsibility. You have your hands in a lot of pies like I do. All right, here's something we all want to be able to do. Monitor when anybody's sharing stuff that came from our website. So how do you do that? This is just a search. When I add a column to TWEETDECK, I add a search column and I can search for anything I want. And all you have to do is put in your domain name with a /. And now anything that comes after that, madpipe.com/gaggle or /some other thing, I don't have to know which article they're sharing. This will take care of it. Anything that comes after my domain name that gets shared on Twitter will show up here. And I can see who's sharing it, what they're saying about it, what they're doing with it. And it also helps gauge the success of the articles. What I find useful about this, you might think, do we really want to look at the stuff we post after we send it out there? Well, yes, and here's why. Because it's amazing how many people recharacterize, rephrase, and reposition the stuff that we post. They have a different take on it. They quote some part of it that we didn't even think was important. And so that's really helpful for me to know. And so I monitor that website stuff. All right, and again, you can filter out stuff, but I don't really filter anything here. And then there's the user account. And this is just one of those out-of-the-box columns. Literally, you click it once and boom, you're done. Your primary account, you can have a user for every account you manage. If it's a personal and a company, you can have 2. I just monitor my business account. And this is basically everything I'm posting. Why do I want to stare at the stuff I'm posting? It just helps me to be able to see what I've done lately. My stream. Okay, I'm keeping up with it. I'm not keeping up with it. How often am I posting? What was the last thing I posted? Does that give me an idea? Okay. And so again, I'm not filtering anything there. It's just an out-of-the-box column. There's another out-of-the-box column here called scheduled. And this again is built into TweetDeck. This is posts that are scheduled to go out, but they haven't gone out yet. For instance, I wrote an article last year about fathers. Well, I've decided that this coming year on Father's Day, which is quite a ways off, it's not till June, I want that post to come out around Father's Day again. So I've scheduled it. But I also schedule other posts. Here's a post coming out the 1st of December. And I do that because, very often I have more ideas than I want to spit into my Twitter stream at once. So TweetDeck helps you adapt to however often you're logged in. The problem with going to Twitter is you have to either kind of do everything now, or you have to go to some kind of third-party tool to start scheduling your posts. And there's nothing wrong with Hootsuite and Buffer. They're great products, but they don't give you the visibility on your Twitter audience and your Twitter community the way that TweetDeck does. And TweetDeck is a Twitter product. So for use in Twitter, this is unparalleled. Now I should stop and show you how to schedule a post. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click New Tweet. Literally, I just click this pen up here and it says, all right, which account do you want to tweet from? I've flagged your primary account, but if you want to switch accounts, you can jump to a different account. And then it says, what do you want to say? So this is just like going to Twitter. In fact, I find it much faster. So let's say that I want to say, let your passion drive all your endeavors. If you're like me, you use the British spelling and it auto corrects. I hate that, right? And I'm going to do #passion. Why do you do hashtags? Well, because this is a way of getting additional followers and getting additional people to have eyeballs on your posts. Using hashtags is a way that strangers find your posts who wouldn't otherwise find it. So I'm going to also do #business, #inspiration, and I'm going to limit myself to a maximum of, say, 3 hashtags because I don't want people to think I'm posting spam. Now, another thing I'm going to do is add an image to this post. We'll talk more about that. That might seem like a big deal. One of the reasons a lot of people say they don't use Twitter is, I got to go through all that work of finding images. Yeah, not really. I'm going to show you how to do it dirt quick. But first, I want to tell you that using an image gives you a 75% higher engagement rate, all other things being equal. That's a huge difference, okay? So I try to use images pretty frequently. And adding an image is a pretty easy process. You click, find an image on your computer, and there it is. Now, I pre-created an image, a branded image with a slogan on it and everything. You certainly do not have to do that. Most of my images are not like that. And frankly, branded images are overrated. You have some Twitter accounts where that's all people post is images with slogans and their logo. And pretty soon we all tune that out because that's a kind of robo posting too. It doesn't feel very human. But in this case, I prepared one because later in the webinar, I want to show you another point. So I'm all ready to post this. I can click tweet and it'll go now, but I'm going to click schedule tweet. And I'm going to set this to go at 7 o'clock because I'd prefer it to go then. And we'll make it today. I can choose any day on the calendar. But now it says, do you want to tweet at 7:01? I'll say, sure. Boom. The tweet is away. And in a moment, it will automatically be added to my scheduled column. And this way I can go and change the schedule on any of these posts or even change the writing in the post before it goes out. So that's another benefit of the scheduled column is if you post something to Twitter, yes, you can kind of edit it live unless it's a retweet and then you can't edit it. If you schedule something through TweetDeck, you can schedule it, 2 weeks in advance before an event you're about to do, to promote an event or something like that. It's not time now, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, nobody's listening, but first of the year, we're having an event. To come December 27th, we want to start really pushing that thing. So what you do is you set it up, and then if something about the event changes or the details, you can change that in your scheduled column before they go out. And you can also just bring it live if you want to get it out right now. All right, a couple more things. You remember the MadPipe search where I did madpipe.com/ and I find anything that goes on my website. If you're somebody that writes a column or you also you're a guest blogger and you post to other people's sites, or even if you post stuff to, there are lots of options. But let's say that in my case, I post to Forbes. And I know that all the articles that I ever post to Forbes have this as the prefix, forbes.com/site/Daniel Degree, and then the rest of it. So I put that in, and now here's all of that stuff. But what's happening is I'm not just seeing my posts, I'm seeing all of how people interpret my posts, how they share them, what they say about them, etc. And then the reason I'm showing you this is next to it, there's another special kind of Twitter feature. Now, these are not TweetDeck features. These are all Twitter features that TweetDeck simply makes easier to use. This feature is called a collection. And what a collection is a curated group of tweets that you simply add there yourself. So I have a tweet here. My aspiration is to be a social entrepreneur. I could drag this over and drop it right into this list, and it'll put it there. And I could drag it to a different spot. This is a curated list of tweets. And what I typically do is when somebody recontextualizes something I say, or they quote it a certain way and I like their take on it, I'll drag it into my collection. How you create a collection, that's pretty simple. I can show you how to do that in the second part of the webinar. But right now, just suffice it to say that I've created a collection called Featured Love. But the next logical question is, What do I do with a collection once I've created it? What good is this thing? Well, I'll tell you. There is a website you can use. It's a Twitter website. Let's just go ahead and pull it up to embed a collection on your website, for instance. So let's say that I want to go to, let's find it real quick, Twitter Publish. It's publish.twitter.com. So here I can drop in the URL to my collection, and it will simply create a grid that I can now embed into any website. I can place it somewhere to display those favorited tweets, that collection of tweets. And you can use a collection for anything. You can curate things that where people champion a message that you agree with that have nothing to do with your website and your brand, but you just want to curate that. It's anything you want to curate. That's what this is for. It lets you put them in some order and have anything there you like. So it could be quotes from famous leaders if that's what you want. You can do more than put it on your website. There are other purposes. You can share the URL to people and they go to it, and it's kind of like a storybook. So they go and visit your collection. Now here on, when you drop down, this is a good point for me to point out that there is a share button on most of these columns, and it gives you the URL to share. I can actually click the drop down and it'll take me to that website I just showed you, the Twitter website where I can create the embed, or I can view the URL, view the actual collection the way it looks on Twitter, or I can actually tweet this entire collection out to people. So collections are very handy, and you can create, some of you will have a strategy of saying, I want a collection of the most powerful leadership quotes you've ever heard. And then once I've built it and it has about 10 things in it, I'm going to tweet it out to people. That's like a mega tweet. That's really comprehensive. You could do that, once a week, and there you have a campaign strategy. All right, moving on. There's another search box. It's just a search box that I created by adding a column called search, or by typing it into search Twitter, which actually creates the column. And I wanted a column called call for speakers, because now what we're moving into, I've showed you how to do a number of things: monitor your own website, schedule your stuff. I've showed you how to create collections. I've showed you how to kind of do account-based marketing by focusing on a small group of people, brands that you curate that you want to really go after. If you're an artist, for instance, it could be a group of 20 galleries you really want to pitch or something like that. But now we're at a search for a whole different purpose. And one way to use a search in Twitter is to ask yourself, what do you want? What would help your business? What is the thing that you most need right now? And for me, I want to do speaking engagements. So I need to monitor calls for speakers. And I particularly want to do speaking engagements that I don't have to pay for a plane ticket for. And so I'm monitoring calls for speakers NYC. And here are all these tweets that are people saying, yep, we need somebody to speak. We need somebody to speak. The event's here in New York City. And so I can keep my eye on this. I log into TweetDeck once a day. I just spend a few minutes with it, just like I would a sales CRM. And now a thing that's going to grow my business and give me some thought leadership clout with my audience is right here for me to respond to as quickly as I'd like. And of course, you can set the filter to, filter out types of calls for speakers, for instance, that you don't want. Like, I don't want to do any political speaking, so I took that out. And if you don't want to hear about the speaker for the House and that somehow gets put in there, you can put the word White House in there and it'll filter it out. Now, you can use this for other things. So let me show you another one. And this you're going to want to write down. Otherwise, you might have to watch the webinar again later. And I don't envy that task. This is an actual hashtag that is probably the most valuable hashtag that you can know about. It's called Journo Request. Now, there's a second one called PR Request, and you should know about both of them. And you should be able to try both of them. They've been around since Twitter's been around. They've been around a very long time. They're widely used by the press and reporters and PR professionals. Now, there's a slight difference, but in general, they do kind of the same thing. Journo Request is for people that are looking for you to comment, to give them some feedback that they can quote in an article. And quotes for your brand, when somebody mentions your brand, or you as a leader, or you as an artist, or you as an entrepreneur, in the press, whether it's a blog post or it's a Forbes article or whatever, every time that happens, that raises your profile, people's awareness of you on the web. It boosts your search engine ranking because mentions are actually measured by Google. So I care about this. So just like I want to have calls for speakers, I'm using Twitter to achieve a business outcome that I want to have. I want to be quoted. I want to be interviewed. And so this is literally requests from people that want to interview. And so I can choose a topic. And so I put journal requests, and then I filtered it by saying I want the ones that mention the word entrepreneur. And most of those are going to be people that are looking for an entrepreneur. And I also want to be interviewed about education. So I have 2 columns here for that. And again, you can use the filters to filter out anything that, if you see a common thing in yours, like you want to be interviewed about sports, but you're seeing a whole bunch of stuff about football, you can drop the word football in the filter and you won't see that anymore. All right, here's another search. And again, we're focusing on using Twitter for business or organizational purposes or entrepreneurial purposes or sales. So this one is merger business news. And notice I've got hashtags here. What I'm saying is that I'm using this column to find new people to follow that I think would be valuable followers if they follow me back, and people that I want to see what they're saying. And so I need to narrow that stream down. Twitter's too hard. I can't scan through Twitter all day long, and I can't go to its search box and constantly type in different searches and weed through the results. So what I've done is filter it already. I know I'm going to miss some stuff, but I don't care. The stream's big enough. I can only handle so much. One thing you'll notice is Twitter moves constantly. If you do a search like this in Twitter, the column will never stop moving. It'll go on and on. So by narrowing the search, this column hasn't moved since we've been here. I don't need something every 5 minutes. And I'm able to put in words, like if I want to filter out if my particular search gets the wrong kind of stuff, I can filter it out negatively by saying, okay, don't show me anything about Donald Trump. So hashtags are useful because it means that these are people that sort of know what they're doing when they use Twitter. They've been in the community for a while. So using hashtags is a choice here. I'm going to show you a search in a minute where I strip out the hashtags because I want a different type of audience. But again, what I'm specifically looking for here is people that I might want in my Twitter community. I might want to recruit them as followers, and I might want to follow them. So let's say I like this guy, Nick Roy. He keeps showing up here, posting good business news about mergers. And I want to follow him. I'm going to click Nick Roy, and I could just instantly follow him. This is Twitter. I don't have to log out and go to Twitter. I can just click the follow button and I'm done. If I want to look at his tweets first and see what other stuff he's been doing, I can click tweets. It'll pop that up, and I can kind of see a history of what he's been doing. So I never really have to leave my TweetDeck, is what I'm trying to tell you. Now, there's another purpose for a column like this, and this is really important. Salespeople know all about this. It's called news trigger selling. So news trigger selling is about when certain things should tell you that it's time to go after that company. Let me give you an example. Let's say I run a management consulting firm like Free Agent Source, and I want to go after companies and talk to them the moment they either A, are a brand new startup that got a round of funding, B, are undergoing a merger or acquisition, or C, they just opened a new location. So I'm going to have a column for each of those things that targets business news and that one concept, a merger or whatever. And I'm looking for people here, not just to do social media with, but to actually talk to and sell. I might be sending them a very targeted direct message saying, I'd like to get a conversation together. But first, you might want to massage that relationship a little bit by following them and, exchanging a few back and forths about the things they're tweeting about. So that's using sales trigger selling or sales trigger marketing in TweetDeck. All right, next to this, not only am I monitoring news about mergers, and for you, it could be something else. It could be news about art. It could be news about anything that you need to think about that as a strategy. What is it that would happen in the news that would tell me that client's ready for me? He's at the right moment in time that's my business or organization should swoop in and talk to him. Whatever that is, you need to create a search column for. But I also monitor general news. And actually, did you know that over 50% of Twitter users, the number one reason they say that they come to Twitter is to get news? This is where you go. So I just joined the club. Instead of monitoring New York Magazine every day and the Washington Post and New York Times, I went ahead and just created a Twitter list. Remember the lists? You can create as many as you want. I created a list, and I simply added several news outlets that I like to the list. Now, I'm not adding CNN and I'm not adding Fox News. I particularly like to see the New York Times, Washington Post, and New York Magazine. But what if I wanted to augment the list? Let's just expand the column, and I have edit list right here. And I click it, and it pops up. And who do you want to add? CNN's right there. It already knows what I'm doing, right? BBC's right there. But if I wanted to do a search, if I wanted to find Fox News, for instance, I could type Fox News in there, and it would find Fox News for me, all the different possible channels, and I could add those to my list. So I don't have to go to Twitter to add things to my list. I can create lists right here. It starts by creating a column, add column, click list, and then you go in and create a brand new list, and then you add whatever you want to it. So I monitor my regular news. What this does, it forces me to open my TweetDeck every day. That's really the game, is be consistent, even if it's 5 minutes. Some days I spend 5 minutes, some days 20. It's somewhere in that range. All right, I have another list called Thought Leaders. All they are is people that I'm specifically adding to the list that I regard as thought leaders. I want to see everything Gary Vaynerchuk says. I want to see everything Neil Gaiman says. I want to see everything that Chris Brogan and Elon Musk say. Except I don't want to see all this stuff about Washington, the CIA, Republicans, and Democrats. So I filtered out Republicans and Democrats because they do make political comments. They're thought leaders. They're real people. Similarly, I have a list here that I didn't create. And so now we're going to teach you how to do another thing. And again, this part of the webinar, I'm sort of showing you a real life one so you know what's possible. The setup will go much quicker. It's lightning fast to set up a TweetDeck, but you need to know what's possible and what the goal is for us to get into all right, how do I create these columns? So the important point here is I did not create this list. This is a list of CEOs throughout the United States, all over the United States, in a variety of industries. Now, there are millions and millions and millions of Twitter lists. So if I want a list of something else, I want to monitor and engage with, let's say, art galleries. There are lists of art galleries. If I want to monitor and engage with steel companies, there are lists of them. You know, if I want celebrities, you can do it. So, and you can break it down. I want skateboarders. Yep, totally available. This list was created by a Twitter user called Conversation Age. And the beauty of Twitter lists is you can follow them the same way as you can follow people. And once you follow that list or subscribe to that list, you can create a column just by clicking add column and add that list to your TweetDeck. Why am I doing this? Well, I don't want to do the work. I'm lazy. I don't want to sit and dig up 500 CEOs. Let somebody else that's done that work create the list, and I'll use their list. That's fine, right? So this is an example. You can still you can still have your own list if you want, but this is how I use it. I want to be able to occasionally interact, retweet their stuff, possibly add those people to my column of ABM targets to go after for sales. There's a variety of reasons. So now I'm going to show you another trick. This is an important point. How do you find lists? Because you're probably wondering, well, if somebody's done all this research for me, how can I do it? The simplest way is Google. Google does more for Twitter than anything else. So if you just go to Google and you type in this phrase, site:/twitter.com, that says limit my search to Twitter, and then type in the word list. Pretty simple, right? Give me Twitter lists. And then put a phrase that you want. I want lists of football players. You're going to find them, okay? And so here's a Twitter list of football players. Let's just click on it. It has 198 members, meaning there are 198 football players on this list. In fact, I can click it and see who all those guys are. And if I want to just follow them individually or add them to one of my lists, I can do that. See, add or remove to my list. I can poach members right off their list, no problem. It's fair game. It's public material. But if I want to, I can just click this subscribe button and we're done. I now have just imported their list into my Twitter. And here's another list. Maybe I'm saying I don't like their list. Well, there's millions of lists. You can look at how they've configured their list. So whether you're looking for CEOs or steel magnates or whatever, this is a fast way to do it. Here's another way to do it. This is a little item called ScoutZen. And when you go to scoutzen.com, it literally has a find a Twitter list box, and that's all it's for. So if I want to type in celebrities, or you can type in anything, you get really narrow, it'll find me lists that people have built. And it'll tell me how many people are subscribing to that list and how many members are in the list and so on. And I can just grab those lists and add those to my Twitter. So there's lots of ways to get Twitter lists into your Twitter feed. And once you've done that, you just create a column and add that list now to your TweetDeck. I'm going to click add column. I'm going to click list, and here we go. I have my lists, and then I have lists that I did not create that other people create, like local arts organizations, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I'm monitoring CEOs for a list that somebody else did the hard work for. Moving along, okay? And this won't last forever, but you kind of need to know what's possible. Here's this phrase, uncertainty. Why am I interested in this? This is a search box I've created with a column called uncertainty. Well, I'm interested in people that are exploring the issue of economic uncertainty. And I had to filter this quite heavily, and I'm still not done filtering it. When I first got into this, I have people are like uncertainty over healthcare. And I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for. So and you're getting the beach ball of death right now. It'll stop in a second. This is one of the things that happens with TWEETDECK is it uses a lot of memory. And so occasionally it'll slow down for a sec, but then it'll pick right back up. I had to drop in things like ACA. I don't really want uncertainty about the Affordable Care Act, but I'm getting a pretty good list here. And as I see new things, let's just scroll down through the list. And let's see if there's anything. Here's one. There's uncertainty on the climate sensitivity to CO2. Again, I'm interested in economic uncertainty. So I'm going to go up here, click on content. I'm going to click on content, go to my exclusions, and I'm just going to type the word climate in there. And that's it. I won't see any more climate uncertainty posts. It'll refresh and all that stuff's gone from my feed. This is how I keep the feed from moving every 10 seconds and how I keep the stuff I'm looking for here. Stops you from searching Twitter. That's my goal. But then the next one here I have is travel art. So I work with an arts organization, the Clark Hewlings Fund, and I want, and also the Clark Hewlings Estate, and I want to be able to see art that has a travel theme, because we have a purpose for that art. So what we're moving into now is free content. I need to be able to put content in my stream, and I don't want to be solely responsible for creating all the content. And on top of that, I can't create a Van Gogh and post a Van Gogh. I need to be able to share a Van Gogh when Van Gogh is exhibiting a travel theme. And so whatever your stuff is, you may have, I'll show you a variety of different types of content that, and you'll come up with your own ideas. I've told it, give me everything that has the hashtag travel and the hashtag art. And then I'm going to find stuff that I want to share, and I can comment on it. I can add to it. I can put my own take on it. But this helps me post content to my campaigns. So let's say that I find something here that I like. Here's a piece that I like. I have 3 buttons over every single one. I can love that thing. I can like it. I can comment on it. That's a way of kind of interacting with your audience. I can do it right here and just post a comment. But I can also click this button, retweet, and it says which account do you want to retweet that to. And so I pick an account, retweet, and it's gone. That's it. If I go back to my notifications, I'll see it there, but I don't have to do that. I know I just shared this piece of artwork with its caption and everything to that particular account. I can also click any tweet and get more detail about it, see who else has commented on it. There's a discussion around every tweet. If I have time, I might play around and do something like that. But today we don't have time. I have another campaign I'm running where I work with a writing company called MarketSmiths. And one thing I want to monitor is bad writing, because we want to comment on writing that needs improvement as a cultural issue. So I let somebody else do the work for me. I don't type in the phrase bad writing. I put a hashtag. Somebody's already figured out that we're not just having a discussion about don't you hate bad writing. We're giving examples of bad writing and we're putting the hashtag on it. This gives me ready-made examples that I can look at and share. All right. I have another one called Meme Funny. I like to share. This is where you get to choose the things that fit your personality. Your TweetDeck should be like your motorcycle or your car. It should be something that you customize to the way you live and how you do it, or your desk in your office. So what I've done is I happen to like to share funny memes. I like to humanize my audience. I don't like to only post about business. If I run a steel company and all I ever post is, well, you know, our steel has high tensile strength, I'm going to bore the heck out of my audience, and I don't deserve the audience. Occasionally, you got to laugh. So I share a lot of funny memes. I find them by putting in hashtags, but then I do one other thing. So here's a new feature. I expand it and I set it to only show me tweets that have images. I don't want somebody talking about funny memes. I want just the ones that actually are funny memes. So I tell it, give me ones with images. And I've done that over here with nostalgic memes too. You know, I've said I can limit it too. I can say I only want ones in English. If it's nostalgic in Pakistan, I'm probably not going to get the joke. So I don't really want the nostalgic Pakistani tweets. So I set this up to be English speaking, only ones with images, and only those hashtags. And I do other things like funny quotes. I do quote, laugh out loud, inspirational quotes. I like to share a lot of inspirational quotes. I'll share anything Elon Musk. So I just type in the phrase Elon Musk with quotes. I'm a big fan of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. So any 7 Habits quotes that I think are good, I might share those. And this is helpful. This starts blending in with my mission and my message as a business. I'm also really interested in business charts. And here's one where I eliminated the hashtags. So here's the thought you need to know. If you put hashtags, it means the person knows what they're doing. It means they're specifically wanting you to see this as a business chart, for instance. That tells me they're trying to sell me something or they want me to share their chart. And that's the reason I don't want that stuff. I don't want canned content. I'm looking for businesses actually just kind of casually talking and saying, hey, we made this chart. This kind of shows our growth pattern over the last couple of years, or this shows how we managed to reach more customers. I want that stuff. That gives me really interesting stuff to applaud, congratulate them for, share with my audience and make a point, tell a story about and go, hey, Dyson vacuums did the same thing, or they're doing exactly what Starbucks did. So I get a lot of charts in there. I like old movie posters. You can see I've done that. I like demotivational posters. I like funny cartoons. I like Art Deco posters. And I'll finish with this one. I have a campaign here that is designed to give me more interaction with people. You kind of got to force yourself to not live alone in your Twitter account. And so I put a phrase, I don't use hashtags because I don't want some caption or some art organization asking me to caption something because it's part of their marketing campaign. I want real live people saying, hey, I took this photo, caption it for me. And I do it. I actually look down through these photos. And so I see something like this. Here's a photo and somebody says, caption it. And I can actually now put a comment here. And I'm going to say something like, hope it doesn't fall out. Now that's a terrible caption for this earring tweet. But I'm going to tweet away. Done. I just sent it. So what that does is that person now sees it. That person may become a follower. That person starts paying attention to my tweets. More importantly, I'm interacting with that person and we kind of are having fun around it. So this is a campaign I do to just create engagement and get me into it. And you can do something like that by using, again, that search box. And you'll see over and over again, I've used the search box. It's probably the single most powerful box there is. All right. So I've shown you what's possible. I've given you a lot of different stuff, from account-based selling and account-based marketing, which is like using it for a CRM to go after a target audience, to monitoring your website and any mentions, to going after and monitoring leads and other things you or your business want, such as calls for speakers or PR requests, or looking for targets to sell, like people that just underwent a merger. I've shown you how to get free content, how to get other people's lists so they've done the research for you. If you really want to talk to the 500 most powerful steel magnets in the world, somebody's built a list. Why do the research and build your own? Just grab their list and start working it. I've shown you how to do a lot of different stuff. The next thing I need to show you is how to actually do it yourself, how to set it up. All right, so I'm going to bring onto the screen another Twitter account. So here's just, again, a plain old Twitter account. And the first rule is you need to log into Twitter. Just do it once, log into Twitter, you're done after that, okay? Once you log into Twitter, close the window. And what you're gonna get is, you're gonna get an empty browser tab, and now you can just type in tweetdeck.twitter.com, tweetdeck.twitter.com, and you're gonna get your personal TweetDeck. Notice I didn't install any software, nothing like that happened. All I'm doing is going to the built-in browser version. Now, I can set it all up here and then download TweetDeck, the app, later to my computer, whether I have a Mac or a PC, and it will all be there. It'll follow me wherever I go. I can log in from a different office, etc. I usually like to set it all up in my browser and then do that, but you can just live in your browser if you like. All right, and TweetDeck comes with some columns right off the bat. They come with the home, the notifications, the messages, and activity for that one account. And right away, if you don't want any of those columns, you can start deleting them. Now, what's home? Home is all the tweets from every follower that you have. Now, if I have 2,000 followers, this thing is going to move constantly. And I could filter it down, etc., but I actually don't, believe it or not, want to see all those tweets. That's why I have lists. That's why I have search and hashtags. I want to see the kinds of stuff that I'm actually going to find useful. So the first thing I do is delete my home column. Goodbye. And that takes care of 90% of the frustration with Twitter. And then notifications. Again, I don't want to see all these notifications. So I'm going to drop down and say, well, you know, I don't really want to see the likes and new followers and tweets I'm mentioned in and mentions right here. I'm just going to limit that stream a little bit. And then pretty soon I'll stick a filter in there, a content filter that says, okay, I don't want your robo tweet. I don't want the one that says, thanks for being a follower. So I'll put quotes around for being a follower, and that's it. That automated machine they're using to do that, which 2,000 other people are using, won't bother me anymore. Messages, I keep that. But, you know, again, I'll filter it. When I start seeing robo messages like this, I start including things to eliminate them. So let's just do that. I'm going to drop in here and exclude the word unreplied. I don't need a notice every time I haven't replied to somebody. And boom, it's gone. Now look at that. Real people are left. Genius. I usually get rid of the activity one too. I really don't want to see every single type of activity. You could keep it if you just want to have a feel-good list of likes, followers, and lists, but I don't use this one. I showed you what I use in the previous illustration. So I'm going to remove that. And now we can get down and dirty and start building a few things. So let's go ahead and add our first column. I'm going to go ahead and click Add Column. And what do I want to do? Well, I think the first thing I want to do is I want to start a search. So let's do that. So what search? It just takes me up here to the search box. And I'm going to say I want to do hashtag leadership. And yeah, let's just do that. Hashtag leadership. So now what I've done is I never have to search for that again. Anything that happens again with the hashtag leadership is going to happen here. And I could have done it over here. I could have put, let's say I want hashtag business. Those are very, very broad. You're going to figure out how to limit the stream a little bit by adding additional hashtags or filtering or any other number of things. You can see this is literally moving in front of me, which is really annoying. And so it says filter it and you'll get better results. Well, yeah, that's what I want to do. And so I'm going to immediately start figuring out what I don't want here and start dropping in those filters. So let's say that I also really only want content that is visual. So I'm going to flip that to only tweets with images. If nothing else, frankly, if they didn't put an image in the post, maybe that's just how I limit my stream. I can't afford to look at every post. So why don't I just look at the ones that have images? And then now I'm getting a fraction of the posts, because even though images get 75% more engagement, about 75% of all tweets don't have images. Ironic, right? And so guess what? This just stopped moving because there are fewer people with images in their posts. And so now this is a manageable stream. So use settings, filters, and other things to manage that. Let's say that I want to add a list. All right, great. So I'm going to open up Google. Let's go to google.com. And I'm going to type in site, twitter.com. I'll expand this so you can see it in a minute. Site, twitter.com, the word list, and now I'm going to see what I want a list of. So let's say that I want a list of thought leaders. Boom. And here I found a bunch of lists of thought leaders. I'm going to click on one of those. Yeah, 229 members. Let's see if this guy thinks the same people I think are thought leaders are thought leaders. Yeah, these are pretty good people. All right. These are people look, he's got Kristen Stewart in there. I think I want to go ahead and subscribe to this list. So I'm going to go ahead and click subscribe. Boom, that's done. I can close it out. I can now refresh my TweetDeck. I don't technically know if you have to refresh your TweetDeck, but I don't want to find out the hard way. And so I'm going to do add column, go to my lists, and somewhere in here, there's going to be that list right there, thought leaders. Let's just add that puppy, and that's all that she wrote. Now I'm monitoring that list of thought leaders and what they have. And again, I can filter out the stream a little bit if I want to. So setting up your columns is pretty simple. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this. I'm not going to go through every single one. You can go back through the webinar if you didn't write down the notes and see the columns that I had, and you can think about what would work for you or your organization, and it'll also show you some of the basics. Like you probably want a user column and you probably want a schedule column. And many of those don't even need settings. Literally, I just click user and pick which of my two accounts that I want. Sure, add it. If I have both, I might want both. Great, now I'm monitoring both things that I want to monitor, which is all the posts I'm putting out. I could click another column and add scheduled. Great, now all my scheduled posts are showing up and I can see and manage my schedule and so on. And so you get to play with all of these and set it up the way that you want. The point is that it's just super easy to do. You know how to use now word filters. I'll show you just a couple of other things. So not super valuable, but still something you might want to know. Let's say that I want to limit this to images like I've already done. I get to choose how big those images are. Do they fill the screen, or do I really want them to be just a small set and I find this more readable? So one thing that TweetDeck will do is it'll let you improve your readability, or if you have eyesight issues, it'll let you adjust. I personally find this look kind of cluttered. It's daunting for me. And I look at Twitter the way I look at my daily newspaper. When I open it up, I want to see something that grabs me. So if you're more New York Times, go for the small squinty text. If you're more USA Today, make those images pretty big. And then now you've got something that's really fun and jazzy to look at. The point is make your TweetDeck something that feels warm and inviting and interesting and pulls you in, so that you'll have the will to actually get involved with it. All right. That was a shorter segment. The next segment is even shorter, and then we'll open up for Q&A. So I'm going to just show you a couple of things that you probably want to know that I know how to do that may be helpful. So the first thing is TweetDeck, I've already called it sort of like a CRM for social selling. I've also called it sort of your daily newspaper, and that's because I use it for all of those things. And again, I don't want news of the kitten down the street stranded in the tree. I want news that's directly relative to what I want. If there's a merger happening in the United States of a company that might be a target for me, that's the news I want. So I've literally customized my own newspaper. There's another way I think of TweetDeck, and that's as Trello for social. Now, for those of you not familiar with Trello, you can be forgiven, but it's a pretty powerful app. It's one of the fastest growing apps. And Trello is a way of organizing information. And this is not a webinar on Trello. I will give a webinar on Trello and how to use it powerfully instead of just out of the box at some later date. But for now, I just want to mention that this is Trello, and you'll notice that it looks very similar to my TweetDeck. It's literally a set of columns. And what I've worked out with my Trello is I've worked out what Twitter campaigns I want to run. What I've done is gone into TweetDeck and think about what is the stuff that I usually post, what's working for me, what are people responding to, and then I've decided to do more of that and just make that a thing. So I never again want to go to Twitter and think, I don't know what to post, I don't have any ideas, what can I post? I don't ask that question. It's done. I solve it in a couple of minutes. There's no writer's block here. And the reason why is I have these campaigns that I've kind of cooked up with examples. So all I did is give each campaign a name. Okay, Twitter, the As It Happens campaign, Twitter, the Tell One Story campaign. So let me give you an example of that. So I found that when I tell stories, people like it. I enjoy it. It's part of what I do. It's part of my profession as a corporate storyteller. And so I'm committed to telling a story every once in a while. And so I'm doing this regularly. So this is an example of one that I told. I told a story just today about Sony, how they went live with Walkman, and it was a real risk because no one had ever seen a Walkman. And people are like, why would I want to carry a cassette deck around on my belt? That doesn't make any sense. My father's got a cassette deck. That thing weighs 50 pounds. People couldn't get their head around it. And so what Sony did was they got skateboarders and bicyclists and stuff and put them all in a park, gave them Walkmans, had them enjoy themselves, and invited the press to see how it works and to listen in. And the Walkman took off. And so I'm telling that story I just told you in Twitter. It is totally possible to tell a full story in less than 140 characters. And so I'm committed to doing that on a regular basis. One more example, the Solve a Problem campaign. So I focus on how to solve people's problems. And again, corporate storytelling is one of my things. So I have a regular post. What am I going to post today? What am I going to post today? I'm like, it's been a while. It's been a couple of days since I've told anybody how to solve a problem. One of my customers the other day said, hey, I wonder how you fix this. And I explained it. I'm going to re-explain that now. And so I do a post on that. So having a few campaigns and having them organized, that's like your co-pilot to Twitter. All right, teach you just a couple of other things. First off, where do you get photos? Because you saw me pull up a photo pretty easily, and that can be daunting. When I emphasize that 75% more engagement comes out of posts with photos, you might wonder, well, I don't have a bunch of photos and I don't have time to go searching for one. This is a site I want to recommend to you. It's called Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S. This is one of the primary places I get photos, though certainly not the only place. And I like it because the photos are free and because there's a search engine here, and the search engine is really good. So let's say I want to post an illustration of the concept of despair. I can type in the word despair, and aren't those pretty convincing? And I choose an image that fits what I want, and I can now just right-click that thing and save it, or I can go over here and download it in any size I want. And usually I just get the small size, download that puppy to my computer. I might even give it a name so I have it for later, called despair, and then that photo is now on my computer. And if you're not seeing it, it's over here on the right side of my screen. So I've got that there for use in tweets. And that's all she wrote. There's a similar tool that you can use, and it's simply images.google.com. And that's Google's own search engine. Now, these are not free. So you have to decide how you're using the image. If you're using the image as a brand promotion, you're probably going to have to pay for it and as a license. And you're not going to be able to just grab images off of Google and use them. That's risky legal behavior. But the courts have typically made exceptions for when you're not promoting your brand. It's really just a social post and you grab something and it's in social media. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so my disclaimer is don't take anything I say as legal advice. That said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in here and type in the word despair. And you might wonder, why would I do a post on despair? But let's just save that for a minute. Let's say I find an illustration I like, because Google's a much bigger search engine. I can just right click and save that image to my hard drive. And suddenly I have, and that is a stock image that I probably shouldn't use, but suddenly I have the image of despair over there. Okay, so I've got a post that now I can type text and add an illustration to my image. And so I just got through posting one on being a bonfire, pursuing your passion. Maybe I want to do an opposite post 20 minutes later, and I could schedule it or post it now, on not despairing and how to overcome despair when you look at Twitter. I look at Twitter and I despair. Instead, come to my webinar. Don't do that. Okay. But my point is that it's pretty darned easy to get images if you want to have images in your post. A couple of quick tools that I use that may be helpful. So I'm going to go back to images.google.com. And these, again, if you want to write them down, that's fine. And let's just say I type in the word tree and I find images of trees. Well, maybe for whatever reason, maybe I have a PC and it's 2 more steps, or my browser doesn't make it easy to right click and save an image. I don't use Chrome or whatever. I have this tool on my Mac called Quick Screenshot Plus. And what it lets me do is just drag a picture around any part that I want. Maybe I don't even want the whole tree. I just want like the center part. Drag it, let go, it pops it up, and it lets me save that to my computer. So I find little tools like this to augment the Twitter experience pretty useful. So again, that particular tool is called Quick Screenshot Plus, and I use one other tool, and it's called Paste to File. And so an example of that might be, it's hard for me to save an image, but I can copy it. So I copy it, and I click on Paste to File, and it says, great, what do you want to call this thing? And I say tree, and save it to my desktop. And lo and behold, it's there on my desktop. In fact, I just opened it up. So there are all kinds of tools to make this process, this thing we tell ourselves about images are hard, it's hard to get images, I don't know what I'm doing, to make it a lot better. I'm going to show you one more of those. So I showed you Trello, which again, we'll do a future webinar on. I've shown you this, which is today's webinar. Here's something I will also do a webinar on in the future. So if you're not a subscriber to the MadPipe YouTube channel, you probably want to become one, because we will be announcing these webinars. This tool is called Canva. And I'm not going to give you a Canva tutorial, don't worry, we don't have time for it. But I do think I can take 2 seconds to show you a quick way to do it down and dirty. And just keep in mind that you can go to youtube.com and type in Trello tutorial or Canva tutorial and get tutorials. You certainly don't have to wait for me. That said, I think I bring some unique sort of insight on how to use this stuff for lazy people like me that want to accomplish a lot in very little time and don't have a lot of energy. I think it might be worth watching that webinar when we do it. But what I want to show you is every size of social post is already here. If you want to do a Facebook post, you can click on Facebook post. If you want to do an Instagram one, a Twitter one. So I'm going to click on Twitter post. And you can do some pretty fancy stuff. There's some prepared stuff where you can click it and change the text. You can upload your own images and make your own. So if I want to do an image that has this guy in it, literally I just drag the image in. Like, let's take that despair image I just did. I'll drag it over here. And it's uploading, and now I click on it, and that's in my post. And so I can now compare these 2 things together, for instance. I'll just put these 2 things side by side, and I'm ready to add some text. And let's say that I add this text, and we'll just take it over here, and I'll reduce the size a little bit and turn it white, which I can do. I've got ready colors, and again, we'll show you how to do all this in a future webinar, but suffice it to say, if I can do this in 30 seconds, even if you've never done this before, you can do this in 2 minutes. And I would say, heroes never despair. And maybe that is my message. And of course, you might want to tweak it a little bit and do some things. I'm not going to go all the way through that now, but what I'm telling you is there are quick ways to do pretty nice Twitter posts that don't take very long and won't disrupt your day. And now I decide to download it. Let's just download the JPEG. And this thing is about to be on my desktop. At which point I'm going to actually tweet this sucker out, because I want to show you just a couple of more things for when you tweet. So Heroes Never Despair is now on my desktop. I'm ready to go to work with it. Let's just close this out. I'm going to do a new tweet. New tweet. Here we go. Who's going to tweet? I'm going to tweet. Let me just switch accounts. I'll do it with my personal account. And so what I'm going to do is add that image. Heroes Never Despair. And I'm just going to say, every day we all make the choice to be a hero. You know what? That's good enough. I'm going to put it in my business account. So we'll do that. Now, here's a couple of other things. You can do the @ symbol and put somebody that you know, and it'll find them. So I want to tweet this to my colleague, Steve Pernod. I want him to specifically be tagged and call attention to it. You can do this with people you've been following over here, like one of those CEOs we talked about, or one of the people that you're doing account-based marketing for. Occasionally, it's nice to just call them out. Hey, it's like saying, hey, I thought you might like this, without adding all of that verbiage. You just put the @ and their name, and you're good. And Twitter helps you find them. Heck, I could tweet this to Katy Perry or Donald Trump if I want to, just by typing in the @ symbol. Okay. And then adding a couple of hashtags might be useful. And so I'll do inspiration and business. And I've already explained why hashtags get you more followers. Maybe I even want to put this into business tips. It's going to suggest hashtags that are trending and popular right now. And it liked business tips better than business. So I'll take that and I'm ready to go. I could schedule it or just tweet. Let's tweet that puppy out. And we're done. I've tweeted it. In a minute, it'll show up. I'm not going to wait for it. But that's how I quickly develop a graphic approach to tweeting. We'll do one more where all I'm going to do is drag in an image that I already have that I saved from Pexels. So I'm going to do add an image. Again, a non-fancy image this time. It's just a picture of a girl I found in Pexels. I literally typed in the phrase thinking, and Pexels gave me this image, and it's free. And I'm like, great, I'll save that to my desktop, because later I want to say something to people about thinking. And I'm going to say, every day in your busy, busy business life, stop and make time to think. And let's just hashtag think. Someone will be monitoring that. You'll be glad you did. Okay, and I'm going to put @ Elizabeth. Let's just put @ Elizabeth her. Okay, and here we go. Off it goes. So I'm just showing you that whether it's content posting or, and by the way, this stuff has already showed up over here. You can see it coming through on the network. And again, I manage one column for, all the stuff that's happening, but then one column for the retweets, so I can see which stuff gets, loved. All right, so we've talked about searching for lists. We've talked about collections and embedding them. We talked about stock photos. I've shown you Canva and some Mac tools. I'll show you two more quick things, and then we're going to open up for questions. All right, so the next thing is, let's say that nobody has the list you want. You have specific people in mind that you want, okay? And it doesn't matter who they are. Jim Smith, the president of Smith Bagels. It doesn't matter who you have in mind. You can quickly find them, again, without going to Twitter. You can search right in TweetDeck, but let me show you what happens. If I type in Jim Smith, the problem with it is there's a lot of Jim Smiths. Let's type @Jim Smith. My mistake. You got to put the @ in there. Now, how many Jim Smiths do you think there are? So I could, if it's not one of these four, I got to search the whole thing. Well, what I found is, look, the TweetDeck search engine is really, really good, but there's nobody that's a better search engine than Google. Frankly, Google does it better, and Google knows which Jim Smith I want. So if I type in Jim Smith Twitter to Google, Google's going to immediately find me and rank them by who basically is higher ranked. And the Jim Smith I want, if it's an important Jim Smith, is probably one of these top few. Let's just give you a celebrity example. I don't even know how to spell Katy Perry, but I don't listen to the music. I guess it's K-A-T-Y. Katy Perry, Twitter. I'm trying to choose somebody non-controversial, and as far as I know, Katy Perry's not controversial. If it's any big person like Elon Musk or Alec Baldwin, when you type it in, Twitter knows who you mean. It's the one that's in the news. So it's going to find that right away. And I can just click on that person and immediately click follow, and we're done. I just followed Katy Perry. I don't know why I did that, but fine. Sorry, Katy, I don't know anything about your music. I don't think it's for me. but she's now on my thing. I can also add her to one of my lists. Let's say I'm just trying to add her to my thought leadership list. Again, I don't know why I would do that, but she's on it now. Great. I don't have to do anything else to my TweetDeck. Anytime Katy Perry tweets, she's automatically going to show up in my thought leadership list now. So that's it. That's all she wrote. So that was the second to the last thing. That's sort of showing you how to find anybody's Twitter. All right, last thing. There are other tutorials on the web. That's the thing I want you to know about. That anytime you get lost, I don't want you to, I'm looking at the things that disempower us. The things that disempower us around Twitter are, look, it's too busy, it's too confusing. Secondly, it's moving all the time, it's too distracting. I get all that. That's why I'm showing you this webinar. There are ways to get around that. I see stuff that just wastes all my time. Great, I showed you filters, etc. I can't do the images. Great, we solved that problem. There's another problem. I can't remember how to do X. I need more practice. I guess I got to go to another 2-hour webinar. No, not really. There are all kinds of great tutorials in Google. If you can Google it, you're good. So I Googled ways to use Twitter lists, and I got a very authoritative post by Buffer that is excellent and has more than I've given you in this webinar on ways that you can use Twitter lists to do things that you want to do for sales, for marketing, for business growth. So whatever question you have, ask it of Google. So I'm going to go to google.com and just say ways to use Twitter lists. I could do how to use Twitter lists. It doesn't matter. You're going to find tons of tutorials. If you'd rather see videos, click on videos and watch a tutorial on how to do it. Don't let yourself be disempowered by the notion, by telling yourself, it's too hard for me, I don't know how to do it. All that stuff, the whole goal of this webinar is not really to teach you TweetDeck. It's really to use this, the way I'm also going to use Trello in a later webinar, to teach you how to improve your efficiency and not be disempowered around some aspect of your business. Now, for those of you that are logging out, I see one person in the chat saying, I got to go, I got to take my kid. Yeah, don't worry. This webinar is going to be there. The recorded version will be there. You'll be able to play it. So just come back to the same link and pick up where you left off. That's not going to be a problem. But for everyone else, I want to go ahead and open it up for questions. Feel free to ask me anything except my shoe size, and I'll take those questions now. So I'm looking at the chat window. That's how you ask questions. And I'll start taking them from here. So don't be shy, and there'll be pauses in between the questions, and I don't want to kind of sit here silently while we wait. So while people are thinking about and typing their questions, I'm going to go ahead and just tool around and do a little bit of review until I see a question pop up. So while we're doing that, I'm going to point out that for me, this may not happen on your system. For me, whether I use the app or whether I use the browser for TweetDeck, every once in a while, I'd say every 20 minutes or something like that, it'll pause for about 30 seconds. And on a Mac, I'll get the beach ball of death. And on the browser version, it'll literally just hang and I'll be stuck there. And so what I do is I just take a sip of coffee, look outside for a second and not let it get me disempowered. I keep going. All right. And as somebody said, what about iOS? Yeah, so is there a TweetDeck app for iOS? Good point. Let's just take a quick search. Boom, boom, boom. Now, for me, I prefer to use my desktop, but some of you are going to be iOS fanatics. I totally get it. And here we've got, why is there no TweetDeck app for iOS? That's in May 2016. Yeah, there's no TweetDeck for iOS. And most likely, it's just because the TweetDeck is it's a big app. It uses a lot of memory and it scrolls. So if you want to do this on your phone, you're kind of accepting Twitter the way you accept sort of Instagram. You're accepting the baseline interface. But on iOS, I will do a quick tweet from my phone using Twitter, and then I'll come back to TweetDeck later. And I might even do something else to that tweet, like edit it or or retweet it or tweet it again, or something like that. So in short, I don't see an iOS app. Do I think they're building one? They gotta be. If Trello can build an app for something as cool as Trello and it's a very similar tool in its layout, the way it scrolls, etc., then you know that TweetDeck can do it too. So it's just a matter of time. By the way, recently they changed that, where now whether you have the app or you have the cloud version, they sync So you can tell they're putting a lot of development into this thing. It just keeps growing. So keep the questions rolling. I'll keep just sort of chatting about various aspects of this while you do that. I tweeted the other day, I'll give you another quick strategy hit. So here's a tweet that I sent. And this is part of a campaign I have. So I'm going to show you, I'm being transparent about this. I think most marketing guys will try to, and I'm not just a marketing guy, I'm a corporate storyteller. So when I say that, I say it in quotes, marketing guys, because people call me that. But I think most of them will kind of hide their cards and show you what's best practice for you. I'm showing you my actual strategy. And so I'm being transparent about it. So I want you to know that. I have a campaign here called What's Happening at Work. And I also have a campaign over here called the Thank You campaign. And what I think is really important is being human, being interactive, being authentic and real with people. And if all you ever do is have a robo tweet that says, thanks for being my most valued follower this week, it doesn't really cover it. So one thing I do when I sit down to my Twitter is I think, what's been good lately? Today, I just got a shirt in from Josh Bank. I love the shirt, love their tailored fit. So I actually wrote them a tweet about it. I'm going to show you a similar tweet that I wrote. It's this one. Last night, I sent a bottle of wine to a friend in another state through a company called Drizzly. They're kind of like Seamless for wine. And so I sent him that, and I did, hey, I sent a bottle of wine via @Drizzly. That gets Drizzly's attention. They've already retweeted and shared my tweet. I haven't checked to see if they followed me yet, but this is a way that you can get engagement and get followers. I shared, if you use a service, you may be able to recruit them as a client or a partner much easier than if you don't use the service. But I actually never just make it up. Every day I just think of something that I'm glad to have. So I was glad this happened. I sent this bottle of wine via Drizzly, and I added the actual hashtags Santa Monica and Brooklyn. Why did I do that? Because every time I do that, people in Santa Monica and Brooklyn that are browsing around the old-fashioned Twitter find me and go, oh, that guy's a fellow Brooklynite, or he has something to do with Santa Monica, and they follow me. Businesses do this especially because their social media people tell them to. So you have a social media specialist goes, let's just follow everybody that uses the Santa Monica hashtag because we're a Santa Monica business. Great, I just got more followers and more people receptive to my message, and maybe they'll learn something from me, they'll evolve, they'll share it with other people, and so on. But I'm just giving real thanks. And I dropped a photo in of this bottle of wine that I shared. And so this is just a photo that my friend sent me. He texted it to me and said, this is really great. They did a great job of packaging. So I sent this out to their audience by putting @Drizzly. So I'm not seeing a lot of audience questions. And I want to just say that I'm here to help you solve any problem you're sort of having with sort of your social media and Twitter. So don't feel you're limited to asking me how to use this interface. I want you to feel free to ask me about how to use this kind of stuff to make it easier for you, feel more empowered about it, but also how to do the things you actually want for your business and organization. How do I recruit? Maybe you want to recruit new talent. Maybe that's your goal. Or, well, whatever it is, I'm happy to answer those questions. We're not going to stay forever, so this is your sort of chance to do this over the next few minutes. And while I wait, I'm going to cruise around and sort of talk. Now, you see my messages column, and you see that I've filtered it. I can actually click and see some of those messages that are older or that I've filtered out, and it will keep adding them for me. So just because I have empty space there doesn't mean nothing ever happened. And so if I want to dig, I can dig. I'm not worried that filters are going to really eliminate anything. How do I delete a search column? Great question. So let's pick a search column. Now I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to show you how to do it because I don't want to lose my column. Actually, let's just do it. Let's type a search, and I'll just do business growth. So it just automatically added a column to the end. The moment I search in Twitter, it just creates a column, and that way I can tweak it. I can do something like hashtag business growth and limit it only to images, and I can set up filters and other things. I can basically build what I want to see, build my newspaper. But if I don't want it and I don't like a column, just click the settings. All your settings are right here on this little gear thing. And then just click remove, and it's done. That's how you get rid of a column. Great question. To the person that asked, will it work on your phone? There may be tablet versions, but I really have not explored the ecosystem because for me, I'm an old guy. I'm over 50, just barely, and I need my I need to be able to control the size of my monitor. Okay, so I use it all on my desktop. All right, and again, you can see the beach ball of death, but you'll also see that it's not that the app is going to crash or anything like that. It is rock solid stable. It's just that every once in a while, the thing has to go, you know, you've used all my memory because Daniel, gosh, you have 45 columns here. It probably won't happen as often to you unless you're literally plugged into 15 different Twitter accounts like I am. So I'm going to tool through and while I'm waiting for more questions and just kind of, and if there are not any more questions by the time I do this, then I'll call it a wrap. I'm going to tool through and show you some things and how I might respond to them. So here's somebody tweeting back saying that I've won a contest, which is to find the best caption for something. So of course I'm going to love that. Now, this is not something I'm going to retweet to my followers. I mean, my people don't really need to see, hey, I think Daniel wins. So that's why I'm not retweeting it, even though a retweet is higher value. But I am going to show this person some regard. This is you see hearts all over my feed. This is a really important principle. When you're in Twitter, it's just like you're in the room with people, show regard. And so I go ahead and use the heart. But if I want to comment on it, if I want to say, yes, I do win, or I actually thought the other guy's tweet was better, I can click the comment section and do that. Or if I want to go, well, who the heck is this Maureen person? I want to click on Maureen, and now I can find out everything I might ever want to know about Maureen. I can look at her lists. She doesn't have any. I can go as deep as I want to go. All right, so that's another example. Here's something that I really like that somebody else said. They said, I'm really honored to receive this award. So that's something that I not only love it, but I love it enough that I'm going to retweet that out to my audience. So I'm going to click on it and just click, yep, we're going to send that out to the Clark Hewlings Fund audience in their stream. And so I click retweet and off it goes. Now, wouldn't you know, I'm having an error. So I tell you that the app is rock solid, but then I have an error when I try to, oh, you know what it is? I retweeted that thing right before the webinar. That's why it won't let me do it again. There's another question here. Somebody in the audience is asking, how do you add people to your My Network at ABM? Okay, excellent. So Willie asked the question, Willie, it depends on how you find the people. So let's say, let's just use several examples, because adding people to your list is probably going to be something you want to do a lot, right? So I'm going to go over to my CEOs. So here's a bunch of CEOs, and none of them are on a list that I own. This is on the Conversation Age list. It could be somebody that just found me. It could be somebody in one of my searches. It could be somebody that retweeted something, and I'm not connected with them in any way. If I see their name in TweetDeck, I can add them. All I got to do, let's take this Roger here, Roger Tennis. I'm going to click his name. Notice there's 3 dots next to the word follow. I could follow him if I want, but I don't have to follow him. So here's the thing, you're limited to 5,000 followers, at which point Twitter says, that's it, sorry, only for a few select people. Maybe if you're Alec Baldwin, are we gonna let you break that range? So you don't just automatically follow people. And I'll give you a quick hit to let you know who your most valuable players are in a second. But you asked me, how do I add it to a list? So right here, it's just add or remove from lists. Now, it's the same thing if you use Google and you Google the phrase Katy Perry Twitter or Jim Smith Twitter or Roger Tennis Twitter, you'll click on it. This same thing will be, this is his Twitter account. This is what it looks like. It'll be right there on the front. It'll be the same 3 dots. So the way you do it is you click on add or remove lists and you pick the list you want to add it to, right? If you don't have a list yet, there's a create a new list button right there and you can create the list. All right, so this Willie's question brought up something really critical that I want to make sure that you guys know about. So let's say that I'm looking at somebody in the CEO list. Let's go back to, there's so many places I can get people. Actually, let's just grab somebody from the merger and acquisition news. So here's a guy named Steve. I'm going to click on Steve. Now, right away, I know something about Steve. Steve gives people regard. Steve is probably going to be a good partner for me. How did I learn that just by a glance? Well, look at it. His ratio to followers to the people he's following. So you'll see people all the time. If I Google Geddy Lee of Rush or Bono of U2, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a Twitter account that says they have 4 million followers and they're following 35 people. What that means is They aren't looking at you. They don't know if you're there. They're not going to reciprocate. They're not going to interact with you in any way. What this says, this guy, he has 3,300 followers and he's following 5,000 people. This guy interacts with his audience. He pays attention. He's probably going to be willing to exchange direct messages with you. He'll probably share your tweets sometimes. So right away, this is my test for, are you human, or are you either somebody has a social media manager managing it and I'm not going to get through to you anyway, or you're robo managing it with a piece of software, you're not even logged in, or you're just not even paying attention to your audience. And I don't add those people. I don't burn one of my 5,000 follower seats by following that person. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not posting stuff that I want to see, and so I might add them to a list. That doesn't use up one of my seats. So I limit it. I'll show you something really quick, and feel free to type your questions. Don't wait for me. I'm actually talking so that you have space to think about your question. If you go to my Twitter account, I'm following 4,000 people, 4,001 now that I follow Katy Perry. Oh my gosh. And then I have just shy of 2,000 followers. And these numbers go up and down and so on. I try to stay away from the 5,000 followers number. So there are two things I want to tell you. One is that this ratio is pretty normal. If somebody else were looking at this, they would say, oh, okay, he's a worthy partner. He interacts with his audience. The ratio, now I've had a brain freeze. I don't know what I was going to tell you about that. Oh, one thing that I do is I unfollow people rather routinely. So if somebody doesn't follow me back, I give them about 30 days. If I follow them and they're not following me, or if they never share some of my stuff and I need room, like I hit my 5,000 and I have 1,000 people who never share anything that I write, that they never retweet, they never respond, they never like anything, they don't do anything, there's zero engagement, then I might unfollow them and go after some people that I want to follow. I use a tool for that. That tool is called Community, COMMUNIT. It's the only sort of automated tool I use for my Twitter. And it's a dashboard that tells me who to consider to follow, who to consider to unfollow, who's not following me back, and a few other things. And it's a quick thing that lets me just go through here and go unfollow, 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 and free up some seats. I'm not a big fan of these robo tools, but I will resort to them because I don't have time to individually unfollow 1,000 people. So once a year, I clean my stack, just like people do with Facebook. Okay, I'm not seeing much in the way of questions. I'll give it just about, what time is it? I'll give it 9 more minutes and then we'll wrap up. So I'm going to look for things to tell you in here that I haven't told you. What else could I tell you? The journal request thing is pretty obvious. So when somebody posts a request like, hey, I need an entrepreneur from mainland China whose parents had to own a business, but who went their own way instead of the family firm, that's a very special case, right? Actually, I know somebody and I could totally turn them on to this. So if that's the case, I could click reply and I could reply to that person. If they are a follower of me, I could direct message it, but there's a good chance this person doesn't follow me. I can click on their name and find out if they follow me, and it'll say following if they do. But another thing I can do is I can click these 3 dots and I've got a few other options. I could send this in a direct message to somebody I know in my network, my gaggle, that I want to do a good turn for. Hey guys, this looks like it'd be a good fit for you, so, Julio. I can do some other things to it. I can mute it if I never want to hear from that person again. I can share it via email. I can copy the link to this tweet and then just go to my Outlook or my Gmail and paste it in. There's quite a few things I can do to it to get that email where it's going. So just be aware that you're not limited to, oh, now I got to figure out how to get stuff out of my TWEETDECK. So keep the questions rolling. By the way, and I'm doing all these by the ways just to give you time to think about and type questions. I'm in here and I've got this search for mergers and acquisitions for business news that I like. What if I really like something else, like here's investing, and I want to take a look at that hashtag. I could click that hashtag, and when I click it, look at this. It opens up a search right now, not all the way at the end of my stream, like if I start from scratch. It opens it up right next to the original one. So now I can do investing business news, And I've just now got a whole new news stream out of this that I can follow. So we have another question, which is, Community IT has a Follow Friday. Yes, and automated functions. Do you do that or just use it to clean out your followers? All right, you've called me on the carpet. You've caught me, not in a lie, but in something that I hadn't planned to tell you, but I will. So again, in the interest of being transparent, you see my campaigns, and I already mentioned to you that I have things like a thank you campaign and I have a human campaign. Well, in my human campaign, I got a couple of different things, right? So one of them is I give my real thoughts to people. I don't hold back. I don't clean it all up and sanitize it for business and worry it's going to be too controversial. Now, I give them a soft version of the human thoughts. So I don't trumpet out something I think that's liable to get me crucified. I don't really ever say anything about Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. I might occasionally say something lightly about Washington, but it's always a joke. It's something that a business guy could say, and you don't really know where he lands, but it's still kind of funny. So that's part of being human. Another part of being human is I use what I call human auto responses. So what Willie is asking about is, okay, use Community, and like Buffer and like other tools, it will let you sort of have an auto reply. So somebody follows you and it occasionally will send out a thing, thanks so-and-so for following me. Thank you for being a high valued user. I hate all of that crap. So I'm constantly hacking it to try to make it better. I don't want to hit people's filters. I don't want to contribute to the clutter because I don't want the clutter. And I really do want to thank people. I really do want to be human. So I do stuff like, I do auto responses that are human. So I'll do things like appreciate the follow, you rock. The shorter, the better. The more colloquial, the better. So yeah, I'll do it. I actually have those in my, that's a campaign that I have, and it's just run by Community. I use it for auto tweeting once a week to people that have retweeted something. I don't retweet and thank all my followers. They don't need to be thanked for following me. They haven't committed that they like me yet. So there's different thoughts on this. There's some people, oh, you have to thank every single follow. No, I'm not going to do that. And half the time, half the people that are following you are robo followers. They're somebody's social media guru, or they're a robo follower. It's something like Community that's auto following you, and you end up thanking SEO guru 1654 for being a new follower. I don't want that stuff going out over my Twitter in an automated way. If I want to thank somebody, I'm going to thank them personally and directly. The two exceptions are that I have an automated responder when somebody retweets, because remember I told you I have this notification column second because I want to see retweets, and I have pretty much everything turned off except the retweets. The highest value thing you can get out of Twitter in terms of the marketing part, we went over a lot of the sales stuff, is when somebody shares your content to their wider audience. So I have 2,000 followers, but what if 5 other people also have 2,000 followers? And this particular post getting shared over and over, now it's being amplified to 20,000 followers because each of those are sharing them to their 2,000 followers. And then some of those will retweet it even farther, and it snowballs from there. Well, I do want to thank the retweets, but I write a very carefully crafted human message. It's very short, it's very colloquial, and I change it about once a month. It'll say something like, I'll never say thanks for the retweet. I'll just say, I have one that says, I appreciate you sharing something I wrote. That's very personal. I appreciate you sharing something I wrote. And it automatically drops their name in. And it's because I'm going to miss it if I have to sit down and manually monitor this. And what it does is automatically grab the names of people that done that and stick it in there. I have another one that's an automated tweet that's a question I ask every Monday. And that's the only other thing I do. I sort of say, hey, what problem do you want to solve? Because I'm in the business of solving problems. So I ask my core value proposition question once a week. And if no one answers, that's fine. I learn from that and I change it to a different phraseology. All right, what's bothering you most today? And I tweet it on a day when Twitter is traditionally a little bit more quiet, like on a Monday. And it gives us something to talk about. So it's all an experiment. But yeah, my advice in Twitter is don't fall for the stuff where you automatically go and pay somebody to do this for you, or you automatically use a machine to do it for you. There's absolutely no substitute for me writing, for me writing to Isabella Mater and saying, I really appreciate your thoughts. Please keep them coming. That's a true thing. I didn't do it because I want to win Isabella Mater's trust or as a client. I could, but I don't actually know that much about her. I just know she keeps showing up in my stream, and at least 3 times a week, I see something really cool, and half the time I retweet it. And I really do appreciate what she's saying. So I just say exactly what I'm thinking. Isabella, I really appreciate your stuff. And 90% of the time, like this guy below, I just did that a little earlier, 4 hours ago. This guy below, Tim Fargo, I said something similar, not Robo. I don't remember what I said, but he said, thanks, Daniel, much appreciated. In fact, I can click on it, and I said, just a note to say, I like your shares, thanks. Very personal, no Robo stuff, nothing couched. I don't say something like, and if you'd like a plumber, follow me on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to take care of all your plumbing needs. Never do stuff like that. All right, I'm going to do a quick review to close out the webinar, but it will last about a minute. So the kinds of things we covered are how to look at the highest value things that people are doing for you and how far your message really reaches in Twitter. And that has to do with these people that are retweeting your stuff. And we talked about getting a lot of those retweets by calling out people so that they see your stuff, not just being alone in your Twitter room. So I use the @ symbol, and by using hashtags and letting people find you, and by actually giving acknowledgments and giving thanks. So I have another campaign called the thank you campaign, and literally I don't care what I'm thinking. I'm really happy that the weather's good. I give thanks rather routinely. The second thing we talked about is how to monitor your network or your gaggle, and I gave you that link, madpipe.com/gaggle. And if you want more stuff like that, there's an email sign-up list at that URL, but I'm not going to twist your arm about that. And so your network is really important. You need to find the 10 or 15 people that are like you. You're all kind of doing similar things. You probably have content that each other's audiences would occasionally benefit from. And you don't commit to retweet every single thing they post. And you don't like all their stuff constantly, because that doesn't really do them a lot of good. It's a pat on the back. But you monitor their stuff, and where it's good, you add something or you share it, and you do it when it fits for your audience. That network is a key strategy you should be paying attention to. You're better in a collaborative group than alone. Account-based marketing is the same thing as account-based selling. If you're sitting there trying to sell the whole market, like literally the customer base you're going after, whether that's talent you want to recruit, it's people you want to sell, or it's people that you want to buy your stuff, if you're an artist or whatever, you collectors and galleries. If you're going after 1 million people, that's great. I wish you luck, but it's a mistake to only do that. You need to pick out 10 or 20 of them and go after those for now, for a while, and really concentrate on them. Don't give everybody a high five and walk away. Pick 20 people and give them some real love and some real interaction. And that's account-based marketing. It works. It is probably, people are so marketing immune and inured to sales language. They hate it. They hate being pitched to. They hate being talked to like they're a machine. Account-based marketing works now when all other tactics fail. We also talked about how to monitor the stuff that's coming out of your website and any place you publish articles, and knowing what people do with it, because they'll give you better ideas than you have, and they'll have a different take. And we talked about having a collection where you can drag some of that stuff and you can store it. If for no other reason, then you can go back through and use this stuff, and you certainly want to like them and call them out when they do it, but also you can embed some of that stuff on your website. We talked about figuring out what you really want for your business, whether that's you want press like I do, or you want speaking engagements, or you want to actually sell people who are engaged in mergers and acquisitions, and using search to start targeting and zooming in on those people. We talked about talking yourself out of the disempowering stuff that tells you, I can't do this, I'm going to have to hire somebody. I haven't found anybody that can do what you yourself can do. I'm not knocking social media experts. We hire them, we work with them, but for some of this stuff, we don't substitute that for this. At the Clark Healings Fund, for instance, we have a social media person. We love her. We think she's awesome. Wouldn't do it without her. But do we just leave it to her? Nope. We get members of our team in TWEETDECK and we get them to help. So I talk myself out of that stuff by using those techniques, and I make myself use Twitter the way people use it for news. I come here to get my daily information. It gets me in, it gets me warmed up with my cup of coffee and so on. We talked about maintaining lists of people that you really want to monitor and engage with, and not building all the lists yourself, but also finding other people's lists. And we talked about getting free content, the kinds of stuff that you want to share. And it may be none of this. You may care not one whit about business charts or old movie posters. Whatever is the kind of stuff you want to share, it's there. And finally, we talked about some way to have a back and forth. And we talked about creating campaigns where you can be consistent, whether that's, hey, you know what? Every single day, I'm going to caption an image. Every single week, I'm going to give thanks for something. We talked about tracking some things you can be consistent. So you never log in and go, I don't even know what I'm going to do. And at a minimum, you can read and click and like and share. And that's it. Guys, I really appreciate you attending the webinar. I feel sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning. We had a little struggle with the microphone, but we got it right. Thanks so much for coming today. Last question somebody's asked, so I'll stick around for another minute if questions are popping up. Do you not recommend auto tweeting Facebook and Instagram posts? I don't recommend auto tweeting generally. I'm not saying I haven't done it. I've done it. I've been guilty of it. But I'll tell you that when I've done it, my audience size has gone down. My content hasn't produced a lot. And it was more of a placeholder because I, as a business owner, was telling myself I was too busy. So what I did one day is I sat down and I said, you know what? All my communications coming out of my business are going to be real. My relationships are going to be real, and or nothing. That was my decision. And I'm going to get involved in this because nobody can have a conversation about what I value and what my business means better than me. I can't hire somebody to drink my Kool-Aid. So I absolutely got involved myself. It doesn't mean I don't have to do it all. I don't do it, have some help, find me some images or, find me a couple of lists. But for the most part, I'm contributing. Somebody says, I'm turning off my auto tweets. Great. Just make sure you replace it with something. It's better to have a few auto tweets if you're going to ignore it and have it at least exist and not drop down to 0, perhaps. Or maybe it's better to let it go quiet. I don't know. But as long as you're going to actually get in and post something, yeah, I would turn off the auto tweets. This has been really good. I'll take a second wrapping up to just remind you, the Clark Healings Fund that was here, I want to thank them for being here. And if you know a working visual artist who's not aware of the Clark Healings Fund and who needs business and entrepreneurial education like what you've seen here, you got to get them to the Clark Healings Fund. Just have them Google that phrase, Clark Healings Fund. If you need to get some copywriting done, serious copywriting, or a mid-size or enterprise business that needs to do it, whether that's white papers and case studies or writing a whole website, make sure you look into marketsmiths.com. And if you're looking to get a corporate project delivered, that's Free Agent Source. You need to take a look at why they're different. I think you're going to like the difference better and never go back to the other guys. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a wrap. Visit madpipe.com if you want more of this stuff, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks very much.